Hey, everybody. It's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you enjoy these live streams, like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at substack.com/@Jeremy. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author page. So today we're doing something a little different. I am going to try us doing a drawing jam session. And so there is an online app called Magma, which is a Procreate style drawing program. And it allows people to draw on the same board at the same time. There is a link in the chat for this stream. So if anyone wants to hop on and draw with me, go ahead and try following that link, and you should be able to log on. Let me know in the comments if you're trying to get on and you can't, or if there's technical difficulties. I was trying to think about how to start doing this beforehand, like how to set it up so that we could, not have any problems. Like, try to test it, do test runs with everybody, and figure out what would work best. But in the end, I just figured we'll get online, we'll start sketching. People will see what what does or doesn't work for them. We'll troubleshoot as we go. And maybe this thing might end up being a bust and not working at all. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see here. So I guess for now, I'm going to start sketching. And if anyone pops into the chat or has any questions, let me know. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here. Let's see here. Oh, James is in the chat. Says I'm here now. Should I try to join? Go for it. Yeah, I'm not even sure exactly what I wanted to try doing here. Like I was trying to think of what I could bring in that would be fun to draw. So let me see here. I am going to try. Let me see. Paste file. I'm going to try and grab something out of my photo library. I grabbed Detective Comics 27, the cover to the first Batman. And I thought, let's throw that in here. I didn't know whether I was going to want to do this or whether I was going to want to do figure drawing. So I grabbed, this, and then I grabbed an Andrew Loomis piece. And I thought, I'll just throw those in there and see what everyone feels like drawing. Or we might just sketch a whole bunch of random stuff and see what happens. I don't know. Life is full of adventure. Let me scale. I don't want to scale the entire screen down. I don't want to crop. I want to transform. And what I have found weird is I don't see a setting to keep the transform proportional. So I just have to kind of eyeball it. But I'm going to shrink that down some. Let's see here. Jim Luhan in the chat says, happy G Day. I guess every Sunday is G Day. All right, cool. I'll take it. Thank you. Anyway, I'm drawing in Magma. There's a link in the chat. If anyone wants to hop in and sketch alongside, you are welcome to join in. And mind you, this may be a total train wreck. I am prepared for that. Not prepared for it, but I am prepared to accept if that's the case. So I just figure hop in, sketch, doodle, whatever. Also, if anyone has any art questions, we can talk about those as we draw. Let's see here. Take this Andrew Loomis, and I'm going to shrink this down. It's just a little reference to get us started. Now let's see here. James says, I spent some time drawing shapes this week. I got to a point where I was attempting trapezoids. I'm wondering how I should go about more complex shapes. What with lifting my pencil? Well, that is an interesting question because, let's see here. By the way, also, I see Herman is in the chat and he says, "What's good, G? I just joined the Patreon. How do I try to jump on?" Well, on this stream, there's a link. If you go to the very first comment in the chat, there should be a link. Let me know if it's visible. But it just says, for anyone who wants to draw along, here's the link to the Magma board. So go ahead, click that link, and you should be able to jump on over. Now, on the question that James had about drawing more complex shapes, and hang on, I need to create a new layer. So I've got something separate from the reference layer that I threw in here. New layer. And I'm going to draw I'm going to zoom in and draw small because this is actually, I want to leave space for everyone to kind of draw all over this canvas. In fact, the reference that I have up there is probably even too big. But in the question of drawing shapes, whether they're simple or complex, well, for instance, you were talking about how you were drawing trapezoids. I personally don't think it's necessary to not lift. Why is my brush is blue because I was drawing with, well, I was setting up a different color experiment earlier in this program. But personally, I think the answer to drawing more complex shapes is, first off, I'm lifting my pencil with each of these. So I'm not drawing it. When I just drew this trapezoid right now, that's 4 separate lines. I did not draw it. If I were to try and draw this without lifting my pencil, I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. And personally, okay, that's not lifting. I feel like I have more control by putting my pencil down and just making a line. Usually when I don't lift it, it's when I'm doing curved lines or going around a form. And even then, if I'm going around a form, a lot of times I may go 1, 2, 3. Now, yeah, this looks uglier than that middle line that was one smooth. But my point being, and hey, James, there you are. I see you now in the, oh, there we go. Cool. So in the idea of making more complex shapes, like let's say this thing that you just drew right there. If I wanted to do something that was more complex, what I would probably do is, well, I would do exactly what you're doing, where I would just mash the shapes together. So I would end up doing, let me see. In fact, this is how I would do it. What I would do is on a low opacity, or just drawing lightly if you're drawing traditionally, but on a low opacity, I would probably go like shape 1, shape 2. You know what? Screw it. I'll do it at high opacity, and I can just erase what I don't want to, because it's going to take too long if I sit there and redraw the whole thing. But 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to move my coffee because otherwise I'm going to hit it with my elbow and knock it all over. By the way, I am not sure if you rotate your canvas when you draw. I highly recommend that. Right now, you're not seeing it because we're doing a shared canvas, but when I'm drawing on my, if you like look at the live stream screen, I'm rotating the canvas around as I go. But I think that the best thing to do is to just have shapes overlap. And then if there's something that's meant to be one large shape, I'll go in and I will erase the bits in between. Let's see here. So James says, I just use my mouse to rotate the canvas. You know, that is actually a good question. I don't know how to rotate the canvas on a desktop computer. I'm rotating it because I'm on a tablet. So I just pinch and twist. That is a good question in terms of how to rotate the canvas. Well, hell, I don't want to distract from the stream, but I see at the top of the screen there's a little help button. And I think that you can click on it and it'll say, oh, how to rotate canvas. Or you can search for exactly how to do that. By the way, I have to say, drawing with a mouse, incredibly challenging. When you draw digitally, do you usually use a mouse to draw? Because I'm like, that for me seems really, really hard. Okay. Jim says, my only question of the day. I'm like, yeah, right. I doubt that. He says, you're given one existing Marvel or DC property to write and draw. You're stuck with a 5-year contract for $200,000. What property do you choose? Well, first off, $200,000 for 5 years. That's only $40,000 a year. I honestly, that sounds like, let me this way, being paid $200,000 for a 1-year or 2-year contract, I would do. But I honestly can't live off of a 5-year contract. That might be what Marvel and DC are offering people, and that's why the traditional rates suck. But first off, before we even get to properties, my problem is the money, and it's not about me being greedy or money hungry. It's about the fact that I can't live off of that. My family expenses, and yes, artists should try to keep their living expenses as low as possible. But I definitely need to make more than $40,000 a year. That would be a huge pay cut compared to what I'm currently making as a toy designer. So fact of the matter is I would probably, before we even talk about Marvel or DC, what I would realistically probably do is I would probably not take the deal, keep my day job, and just make whatever I want to make, as opposed to having to take a huge pay cut to draw on their particular properties. Now, there's two ways to look at this. There's the mercenary smart money, and then there's the what calls to my heart. The mercenary smart money is always do Batman and Spider-Man because they're always going to sell. You're going to make more money and royalties. That's the smart money. The reality, if I were like, well, what is just speaks to my heart? I think that would be challenging. For Marvel, I've always kind of loved Ghost Rider. And Wolverine was probably one of the first characters that I got into in Marvel Comics. So it'd probably be either Wolverine or Ghost Rider, or I'd like to do like a Ghost Rider Wolverine comic. That would be like a nice team up book. Like the same way that they've got that there's a Wolverine Spider-Man comic that I think I can't remember who the writer is, but Kari Andrews is drawing it right now. And I think it's Mark Guggenheim. Anyway, I would probably do something like that with Wolverine and Ghost Rider. For DC, honestly, even though I said Batman just for money's sake, I think Batman is probably also my favorite DC character, so I would probably do Batman as well. But I think, you know what? I like the idea of something kind of like a Brave and the Bold, where you've got him teaming up with other characters. So I'm trying to think. Batman Zatanna doesn't necessarily sound... Oh, you know what? Batman Deadman. That would be a great combo. And I'm sure they've teamed up before. But I would love to do a Batman Deadman comic. And it's funny because when I came up in the 90s, Kelly Jones was working on Batman. It was during the breaking of the Bat where Bane broke his spine. But Kelly Jones also, aside from doing great Batman Elseworlds and having a great run on the main book, also was a notable Deadman artist. So I think maybe I'd be channeling some Kelly Jones vibes. I don't even know why. As we were talking, I sat there and I started sketching a car, a muscle car. I don't know why. I just was like, Let's see here. Dylan is in the chat. Hi, Dylan. By the way, if you guys scroll up to the top, you know what? I should probably just hang on. I'm going to paste this link again for anybody that comes in. Whoop, hang on. That is not what I want to do. So if anyone wants to join in this stream, wants to draw on this board, James and I are in here sketching up a storm right now. But if you guys want to come in and join, by the way, James, hang on, I'm jumping around to a lot of different questions. So let me see if there's more before we come back to James. But I was going to say, everybody, in the comments, there is, or in the chat, there's a link to join this Magma board if you want to just get in here and draw together. Jim says my question is all play. Like I get like this thing is like I'm getting too serious about it, which is true. I take everything too literally. My wife says I'm definitely on the spectrum when it comes to something like that. But yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, for me, thinking about the finances is part of the game of like how would I actually make it work. But let's say it was Jim says, let's say it was 200,000 a year for 5 years. Okay. I think it would probably, for DC, it'd be Batman. For Marvel, it would probably be Ghost Rider. But I'd like to do something that's kind of like a Ghost Rider, Brave and the Bold thing, where he's just kind of traveling through different parts. Well, actually, you know what? No, I'm going to go back. I'm going to stick with I'm going to stick with Deadman. I think either Batman, Deadman team up, or maybe doing a Deadman book. I think I would like to do Deadman. Maybe here's the thing. I mostly only know Deadman from the Kelly Jones book, which I want to say Mike Barron wrote, but I can't remember who exactly was the author of the miniseries that Kelly Jones did of Deadman. But I almost would like to do a Deadman Year One if that hasn't been done yet. That would be kind of interesting. Or just have Deadman, just dealing with the deaths of characters in the different universes. So those would be my guys. All right, let's see here. And I see Red is in the chat. Good to see you, Red. Red says, I think I'm lost in the sauce. I don't know how to draw a face anymore. I used to be great at it. Well, if you want, grab one of those links and jump into the Magma board here. Hey, I see Herman's in here too. All right, Herman, great. You got on here. Let's see here. Let me go back to James real quick. So I see you're saying that you use your Wacom usually when you draw digitally. So I think it might be a good idea to zoom in because this is a really big, I kind of want this canvas to be big enough that we can all sort of sketch around together. So you can make your brush small and then do, like, for instance, I'm going to zoom in here next to your drawing. And let's say that you've got like this trapezoid. And you've got that triangle shape that you did. For me, if I wanted to combine these, I think it becomes a matter of deciding when and how you want these things to interrelate. So for instance, if you were to try and draw this trapezoid, let's say I did something where I make that trapezoid sort of three-dimensional. And what's crazy is that Andrew Loomis reference that I have in here that's on the left-hand side of the screen. That reference deals with exactly what I am sketching right now, in the idea that I'm treating all of this like it is surrounded by a bounding box. And what I mean by that is I'm taking these shapes, but mentally, if I switch to like a light blue, mentally, this entire thing for me is surrounded by a cube. So really what I'm doing is I'm focusing on keeping the vertical lines and the horizontal lines parallel to try and create a sense of consistency, or an illusion of consistency rather. This would probably look better in red. Not look better, but I mean show up better so that you guys can read it on the screen. It's funny, the little eyes on your icon there, James, kind of remind me of like a mosquito type character. It actually reminds me of the anxiety mosquito from Big Mouth. I don't know if you've seen that show on Netflix. Let's see here. Dylan says, for DC, I would do Aquaman since he's my favorite. But other than him, I would pick Wonder Woman since she's highly underrepresented. Plus, she's a Greek character, and I love Greek mythology. Wonder Woman is a great pick. Aquaman, I think, would be interesting in that I've never really explored him much. And I like the idea of drawing characters that are like there was a thing when Frank Miller first started working on Daredevil. I think what the way the legend has it is that when he got a gig at Marvel, he was allowed to pick a book that he said, "What's your lowest selling title?" I can't remember if it was Jim Shooter was the editor at the time, but whoever it was, he went to the editor and said, "What's your lowest selling title? Let me work on that." And I think it was Daredevil. And they kind of left him alone because it was not something that everyone, no one cared about it. They were planning to cancel it anyway. They said, "Go ahead, have fun." And they turned into a best-selling book. And I say that because Aquaman, not that Aquaman is not a good-selling title. I actually don't know how the sales are doing. But the idea of taking a book that I don't know that well and having the freedom to just sort of pick whatever I want to do and just have fun with it. I think it would be I would be interested in Aquaman from the standpoint of not knowing him that well and being able to explore him. Let's see here. James says, I was thinking about group projects when I was in school. One time I had a project that involved voice acting, and my partner didn't want to voice a female character, so he had his girlfriend do it. Yeah, he played the role when we acted out the scene. That was pretty asinine now that I think about it, but I've had good experiences with group projects. It's funny. I actually did have, there was a girlfriend that I had in college who, when I started making animated short films on my own, I asked her to do the voice for one of the main characters. And I think that that's something that, Jim will tell you, Jim is real great, Jim Lujan, at bringing collaborators in and working on group projects, because he has a wealth of collaborators that have worked with him on his animated projects, including his most recent one, The Unicornians. Jim has a knack for bringing his buddies in for doing some voice talent. So, yeah, I think that if you have people that you enjoy working with and you want to have fun and play around, you should totally do that. Let's see here. Dylan says, for Marvel, I would pick Storm. What a surprise. And she's my favorite superhero, even more than Aquaman. You know what? Storm is a good choice. Yes, I think Storm is actually a better choice than, say, Wolverine. In fact, you know, I might actually be interested in, I like Logan, but I might be interested in drawing the Laura Kinney version, just because I really liked the all new Wolverine, the Tom Taylor run that he did, where they introduced her little sister Gabby, the honey badger. It was very, very funny, and it was funnier than any Wolverine book has any business being. But it was funny, still had action, and was kind of like very charming and heartfelt for what is normally such a badass, violent book. Jim says, "I just got the phone with DC. You start Tuesday. Good luck." Thank you, Jim. Let's see here. Dylan says, I think it would be hella cool to have Aquaman and Wonder Woman teaming up, and Poseidon is the reason they're teaming up. That's a great thing. Ties into all of the Greek mythology, ties into Atlantis. That would be awesome. Let's see here. So, Herman, I saw you were drawing a head on there. Oh, you know what, James? I was going to say, since you've got that... By the way, you guys, if you at any point want to create a new board, you can do that. Like, for instance, I've got the board that I'm sketching on now. You can just tap on the visibility layer and it'll disappear. And then you can press new and create a new layer to draw on if you want to draw with more stuff. I will tell you, James, I think, like, I'm looking at the stuff that you're sketching here, and I think you're doing an amazing job for sketching with a mouse. But I'm not sure if I really know how to give someone drawing advice for drawing with a mouse, because for me, the physical mark making is so tied up in that's your board. Where's my board? Here we go. Oh, I'm using the eraser. For me, the physical mark making is so tied up in the type of control that you have with your hand and your wrist. And I'm not even sure like how to give advice on controlling a mouse and drawing the figure with a mouse. It feels so different from what the marks that I make. I mean, like, I feel like just having the developing the motor skills and the control when you're drawing digitally, trying to develop the same level of control that you want to have, drawing traditionally as drawing digitally, that alone, like, for me, like, I can see, obviously you understand the concept of drawing, like, for instance, down here, you've got this simple cube. I feel like it's more about just practicing drawing the primitive shapes. And then when you want to do something that's more complex, it's a matter of welding those complex shapes together, which it very much seems like you understand that idea. So it's just a matter of practicing it, being able to take a shape like this and then say, all right, you can rotate it down. Or you can tilt it, you can rotate it downward. Or you can rotate it to the side. Let's see. Okay, so let me see here. All right, so Herman says, gee, how do you do what you mentioned, creating a different layer to hide? I missed the whole process. So it lets me zoom in on the screen here, but it doesn't let me zoom in on my monitor. So if you go over to the menu on the right and you go down to the layers, you'll see your opacity. You'll see whether the layer's on normal. You see the button to lock a layer, to move layers up and down. Right when you look at the menu that has the opacity, right underneath where it says like 100% opacity, just below that, there's a little plus sign. And if you click on that plus sign, it'll create a new layer that you can draw on. So yeah, it sucks that I can't zoom in on that, but yeah, just go down to the bottom of the menu that's on the right. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, the menu I think changes depending on I don't remember exactly how you do it, but there is a way to turn this menu so that as opposed to having a big menu on the side, it shrinks to like a mini menu, and I'm kind of afraid to change it. Oh wait, maybe it's just this. Oh, there it is. No, that just moves it to the side. Oh, okay. There's a little gear, and I don't know if it comes in super simple mode, but all right. So looking at my screen right now on the live stream, you see underneath the icon where it's got my name, it's got the color swatches, and then at the bottom it's got a little gear. If you press the gear, a little menu comes out and it says super simple mode, and full mode. When I hit full mode, that's when I get the screen with all of the different where I get my layers palette, my brush settings, flow, opacity. At the bottom, that's where the layers are. So hopefully, let me know if that helped you find the buttons that you can add more. I gotta tell you, I'm looking, James, at the shapes that you're drawing, and I am amazed that you're drawing something that detailed. You said you're using your Wacom tablet. All right, well, no, that actually makes more sense now, because I was gonna say drawing something that detailed with a with a mouse, I'd be like, oh, that's really hard. Although, you know what's interesting? I have not tried drawing with a mouse on this tablet. Something that you could try is if you use a mouse and you click on one spot and then you hold down shift and click on another spot, I don't know if the mouse will create a straight line and automatically connect them the way it does in Photoshop. I'll tell you the other thing that I do miss about Procreate is that with Procreate, if I draw a straight line like this and then hold my mouse down, it'll straighten that line out and I can move it around. And it does not seem to be able to do that. Oh, see, there you go. So I could tell you did the shift click thing. The reason why I bring that up is because now you could very rapidly just construct a box going shift, shift, and then shift, shift, and then you can go shift, 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 shift. And basically you can do that and create boxes. Then you could say, all right, I want to make like that shape you're drawing above. Let's see here. Well, there we go. Herman getting in here with the perspective grids. I'm curious, Herman, if you have used Magma before, because you seem like you are just right at it, and you aren't even tripping off of it. Because for me, when I started using this, just figuring out the little differences between this and Procreate were kind of tripping me up at the start. But you seem like you are just right in there, ready to go. Let's see here, some organic shapes. Oh, I see. Like he's getting ready to consume. He's got treats. Let's see here. James says it gives me a light line that I can position how I want. Oh, okay. Well, that's good. That's actually very handy to use for drawing, for constructing things. Because I very much like the idea of drawing very light construction lines and then building. Like I tend to draw actually more. Whoops. Let me undo those marks. I tend to draw more in the way that Herman does, where I'll do a lot of sketchy lines and kind of build up a figure. In fact, James, I'd like to see you try something interesting. Do you ever do light drawings, a light opacity, and then build up on top of it? Kind of like, for instance, let me drop the opacity down here real low. Like, for instance, this shape that's right in here. My brush is down to 10 opacity. I should probably drop it up to 20. But this shape that's right in here, do you ever go in and say, all right, if I'm going to draw some complex shape, coming in and doing a really light opacity? Well, that's the whole layer opacity, which is another approach because you can go in there and turn the whole layer on a low opacity, draw, sketch lightly, and then go on top of it and clean it up and do a more detailed drawing where you kind of refine your lines and fix them. And you can do that with an entire layer, or you can set your brush in a low opacity. Neither one is the right way to do it. It's a matter of just trying and seeing what works for you. In fact, I would say that I use both methods. So for me to say, oh, do one or do the other, depending on the situation, there are times when it works better for me to draw an entire layer on a low opacity. And then there's times when it works better for me to just have the brush on a low opacity and make adjustments as I go. But the advantage of doing this is that you can come in there and sort of like build your drawing and then later on come back with like the full opacity brush and make cleanup lines and cleanup marks. Yes, construction lines. James says, like construction lines, exactly. I mean, digital is one of the best places to do construction lines because of the fact that unlike working on paper, you don't really have to worry about cleanup. You can just throw another layer on top. And I will say that drawing arcs and curves, for me, without rotating the screen is incredibly hard. Like on my screen right now, as I'm doing this, I turned the entire canvas upside down just to make the ink version of that line. So I feel like it just would have been really, really hard for me to make freehand. Now look at this. I like that, Herman. Is it kind of like a Dracula typed character because he has I don't know, the ears and the face kind of remind me of like a vampire. I'm gonna do a wolf man trying to creep on your vampire. By the way, guys, the link, if you guys want to join in on this board, I'm gonna toss that in there for anybody else that's joining in. This guy looks very badass. Let me see. Let me drop my opacity down. Make his snout a little bit longer. See, what's weird is I'm trying to draw a wolf man, and so far, I mean, I know I just started, but it's honestly, I'm like, how do I do this so it doesn't just feel like a dog? No, I like that guy you did there. By the way, Herman, I meant to tell you, thank you so much for becoming a patron. I appreciate you joining. Um, I haven't done the second Patreon live stream for the month, and considering the fact that the month has gone by so quickly and it's almost over, I probably should do that. Normally, I try to do it on a Monday or a Tuesday night, but I think I might actually do it. Honestly, depending on what my wife's doing, I might end up doing it later tonight. Actually, you know what? Let me take this guy. Let's see here. Herman says, no problem for joining. I've been wanting to eliminate some things I subscribe to, but this feels more important. Target, get back at it. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being a part of the community. Yeah, Herman, that is looking pretty dope. I need to make my brush a little bit bigger. No, I just remembered the reason why my brush was so small is because I was trying to draw tiny. Okay, it took me a little while to get into the rhythm with this guy, but now he's feeling a little bit more like what I was hoping. You know, it was funny. I wasn't really sure what we were even going to do other than just getting on a board and sketching together. Let's see. But one of the things that I had actually planned for this, but I didn't know whether I was going to pull it up or not, I found a bunch of pages from John Byrne's Neverwhere, which is it's his X-Men fanfic book where he's basically just picking up where Dark Phoenix Saga ended and saying, what would I do if I were to just continue? What would the book be if I just continued doing what I had intended to do? But it's all pencils. It's not inked. And I was going to bring some in and see if you guys felt like inking stuff together. But this idea of just, picking up characters and just sketching them for fun, I feel like this is more fun than inking John Byrne digitally. But before moving on to inking that, you know what? Let me create another layer now. Because I see, James, that head that you drew down at the bottom of the screen. I don't know how easy or difficult it is to draw shapes. It's been a long time since I've used. I have a Wacom tablet that doesn't have a screen in it, and I don't know if you're using the ones with the screens or not. But I see this head that you've got over here, and oh, you know what? I see that you did the construction lines there. What I would do is I would actually take this head that let me back my pencil. This head that you drew right there. What I like to do, and I think you guys have seen me do this when I'm doing my fixing figure drawing session, is I will go and I will redraw the same drawing multiple times, trying to figure out what it is trying to figure out where I can make it better. So, for instance, I think with this guy, trying to get that primitive construction line to really feel more three-dimensional. And this may be more challenging when working with a stylist, but something as simple as changing how you draw that first sphere, working on making a primitive shape that feels more three-dimensional will allow you that when you go in and you decide to let's see here. When you go in and you decide to do something like drawing a head, I'm curious what's going on with his nose because it almost looks like he has like a pig snout type face to him. But either way, the idea is before even adding any features, is to practice just drawing this under shape, the construction, and maybe spend a lot of time just practicing that basic construction underneath before you add the hair, before you add the ears. Let's see here. Oh, James says, I'm not. I was trying to do it with some perspective. And he says, I haven't messed with noses that much. Well, noses can be very, very challenging because they are, noses are kind of like feet in the sense that they're simple shapes, but they are subtle shapes. And if I go over here to the side, let's say that let me drop my opacity again. Let's say that I'm drawing a face. And it's a 3/4 head. The simplest way to approach the nose is that the base of the nose is going to start halfway down between the face and the eyebrows. So not between the eye line, but the actual brows. The nose sits about halfway down that. And I just want to define the brow line a little bit better here before I start putting the nose in. And again, trying to block in and define the overall shape of the head before getting into those details. But basically, the nose is just like now it'll cut in a little bit, but then it comes back out with the bridge of the nose. But overall, you can imagine that kind of like Lois Griffin in Family Guy. Like just imagine there's a triangle coming out from the entire surface of the head, except instead of just a flat triangle, it's kind of like a pyramid. Well, actually, you know what? No, you said you've been practicing trapezoids. It's an angled trapezoid. She's got a trapezoid on her face. We all have trapezoids on our face. That's what it is. It's a trapezoid coming out from the face. Now, yes, that is not, you would be accurate if you said that's not what a nose is. And you're right. But it's a simple construction to start placing the elements of the nose inside of that. Now, the other thing to remember is that while the base of the nose is here, it sort of sits on top of the muzzle, the mouth muzzle. So if you were to put a little, let me come in here with the eraser and just carve out a little bit of that. The nose does sit on a curve where the mouth goes. Now within that, you've got the ball of the nose, the nostril, the wing of the nostril, And there's actually a break that's about where the eye line is. And that break is sort of where you've got the, I have to erase a little bit in here so I can properly put this shape in. Another trapezoid cutting in and then cutting back out. So you can think of the part that goes in a little bit, almost like this is a tiny hourglass. Like it goes in and then comes, it goes in. Whoops, that brush is too big. Goes in. Even that brush is too big. Goes in, and then it goes back out. So really, if you want to practice drawing noses, Herman is going all out on this dude. I just zoomed all the way back out to get a look at it. That looks really badass. What I was going to say, James, is that if you want to just practice really the primitive shapes that you're doing are really, really good practice for that. But you can just take an overall. In fact, this is the way I would recommend constructing heads and noses. You can have an overall sphere for the mass of the skull. Then you've got not quite a trapezoid, but a box with the bottom half like shaved off for the lower jaw. And then for the nose, you've just got that wedge. And that wedge is just a three-dimensional triangle. So if I were to draw this in a three-dimensional view, let's see here. Herman says, I'm drawing on the screen and it feels glossy and slippery. Can't afford a Wacom that has a better surface. Well, that is always a problem. I don't know if they make paper textured screen covers for Wacoms. I know that for the iPad, it took me a little while before I found one that worked for me, but mine has a slight texture to it, not enough that it really distracts from the drawing, but just enough that it gives me a little bit of resistance, a little bit of like drag as I drag the stylus over the surface. The challenge is with some paper textures, the texture is so dense that it might feel like paper, but it will wear down the tip of your stylus faster. Let's see here. James was asking if there is a transform, and there is. If you go to the toolbar on the far left, just below the lasso is the transform. But here's the warning. I have not figured out how to make it scale proportionally. When I scale, it just allows you to, it'll just warp it, meaning that it won't keep it just proportionally locked. It'll scale both the height and width. So you kind of have to eyeball it and keep it proportional. I am certain that there is a way to make it lock proportionally when you scale, but I have not looked at the instructions at all for this app yet. There you go. Yeah, you got it. I have not looked at the proportion, the instructions for this app yet to figure out how to do that. And that's something I probably need to do after this stream. So I should know that for the future. Let's see here. By the way, James, you might want to turn the layer you're working on off and start a new layer just so you have more room to draw on, because the screen's looking pretty crowded. What I was going to say is the wedge here. So drawing three-dimensionally, you've got that sphere. Actually, I need to cut that in. That needs to come in more. And then that wedge. Yeah, so this part that I've got on screen here, if you want to look at just a simple way to build a head, it's these three shapes. It's just the sphere for the mass of the cranium, that box with the bottom shaved off for the jaw, and that nose, that wedge for the nose. In fact, that wedge should be skinnier. Well, you know what? It's not even that it should be skinnier. I'm going to come in here and it actually comes in like that. Like it gets narrower as it comes to the top. Let's see here. Herman says for proportion, he says hold select your art, and when you see the transform grid, hold shift at the same time to make it bigger, small in unison. Now see, that's the challenge, is because I am drawing on a tablet as opposed to having a keyboard. So I don't have a shift modifier. But I do have a digital keyboard that I can connect to this. Well, it's like a little shortcut pad that a buddy of mine bought for me. But it does have modifiers. So I need to see if I either need to connect that modifier or whether I need to, or whether there's some other like alternate way specifically for when you're drawing on an iPad or a tablet. Let's see here. Dude, this guy came out pretty badass. The guy that you did, Herman. All right, I'm gonna finish up my my werewolf guy real quick, and we're getting near. You know, it's a little bit past an hour, so I'm gonna finish up this guy, and then we'll see if there's any more comments or questions or anything else we want to talk about before we wrap it for this stream. But this is this is the first try at us doing this. If you guys have any thoughts about how you want to do this in the future, whether you want to maybe do like a themed drawing once a month, we can do like just a thing where we all just get on a board and sketch, or if there's a way that you want to do it where there's something that you'd like me to demo or draw over your sketches, we can talk about how we want to do this in the future. So yeah, if you guys have thoughts, let me know. I'm telling you, Herman, looking from that guy you just did, I'm like, you don't need no demos. You got this. That guy is badass. It's like you need to be giving people demos. Right, I need to make this brush bigger. Something that I have found is it's very possible to fall into the bad habit of pressing too hard when you're working digitally. And in the same way that I work, when I'm working in charcoal, I'm working with I started by working with a really soft, like a 6B, because it was super black, like inky. Any lines I put down, I had to develop a very light touch. And I realized that working digitally, I kind of need the same thing, because otherwise you'll start pressing really, really hard to get the lines that you want. Whereas if you do the opposite, if you use a brush that is large and your drawing device is pressure sensitive, it will force you to use a more delicate touch. And not only will that give you more control over your drawing, but it will also protect your hands in the long term, because pressing really, really hard on your screen or your paper or whatever your drawing surface is, that's one of the things that will lead to carpal tunnel. When I draw digitally, I'm always trying to sort of get a weird kind of bloopy, inky feel. And believe it or not, Magma is doing a really good job of that. Let's see here. And Herman said, thanks, appreciate it. And I mean, hey, I mean it, honestly. That's like a great character piece. And also the fact of, like, I don't know if you've used Magma before, but to jump into a program that's kind of new or unfamiliar, I know that for me, just I did like a couple of tests last week just to kind of get in here and see what the app could do. And I very much was like, oh wow, I don't know if I can use this thing, just because the way that it interprets the gestures and the marks that I make is different from what Procreate does. And every drawing app has a little bit of a different feel to it. Drawing in Procreate versus Clip Studio Paint versus Photoshop, they're all just a little bit different in terms of the feel that they get you. And you can get good results from any of those apps. It's just a matter of adjusting the software or adjusting your brush so it does what you want or need it to do. But I would say that I'm very impressed with how you just jumped in and you were like, wow, all right, I got this. I can make this do what I need it to do. Because I very much feel like I'm still getting a sense of what I want Magma to do. Let's see here. Herman says, thanks. It's been a minute since Drawing Man. I'm trying to get back in there. Eventually, I want to do some one-on-one, but this Magma is dope. Never used it. Yeah, honestly, other than this session that we're doing right now is the most time I've spent on Magma. Like, I discovered it. I heard about it on a Schoolism on their Discord server, and they use that for drawing jams. But honestly, it wasn't until I'd always had it in the back of my mind that it would be a fun thing to do, to just get people together and do some hangout drawing. But this is the first time doing it as well, really, and I'm pretty pleased. Let's see here. James says, I got some primitives in there. Would you recommend practicing those? Let me take a look. I would absolutely recommend practicing primitives. Well, see, what I think is interesting, James, if I go over, where's that other layer that I had? Go to this layer. Like, for instance, this shape that you've got over here, I would honestly, I would take that and I would break it up into the multiple primitives that you want to practice. So you can take that and say, all right, this top part goes like this. Then it comes out a little bit. I need to bring this brush down a little bit more. Like, I think you could take the primitives that you've got there. I need to rotate this screen, give myself an angle where I can get a better line. I'm always trying to take advantage of using the natural arc of my hand, the natural arc of motion that we have when we're drawing. You've got that shape that's coming out and then down. Okay, what I need to do is extend this a little bit further. Whoops. So what I would practice, James, is taking the simple shapes that you're drawing and use them as an experiment, a way to practice drawing three-dimensional forms. Hang on, I gotta blow my nose here. Allergies acting up again. Get a sip of my coffee too. So is what I'm doing here, James, does this make sense to you? This idea of taking the simple shapes that you've drawn and trying to practice not just drawing the primitives, but drawing the primitives as three-dimensional objects. Like, do you see in what I'm drawing here in red how this reflects the flat, simple form that you did? Because this is what I would recommend practicing. Well, it depends on what you're interested in. If you're interested in drawing the human form, I'll show you one more thing, and then I think we'll probably wrap it up here for the day. But the idea, and I'm just putting a little hatching in here to help define all of the sides that are facing away from the light. And actually, I can take this layer and I can move it up a little. There we go. What do you want? Khaleesi's back here causing trouble. I don't know if you hear her meowing away. But oh yeah, James says, yeah, I was trying to do that for faces. Well, faces are a lot harder because they're more complex. Again, this thing that I was showing you down here with the simple, the circle, the wedge, and the box with the bottom cut off. Like, I think practicing drawing that from multiple angles, and like, look, what I would do is I would fill an entire sheet with just let me go back to the pencil here. Like, I would fill an entire sheet with variations of this. Maybe what you do is you look at a photo and then you just say, all right, I'm going to try and draw the head turned this way, but just draw the head using these three shapes. And just practice drawing the head from different angles, people looking in different directions. Like, for instance, the Ram Man that Herman is drawing over here in the corner. If I wanted to try and draw that guy with just those simple shapes, let me zoom in over here up in a corner. Let me get my Wolfman out of the way. And go back up to this other layer. So if I wanted to try and draw Herman's Ram Man in just those three simple shapes, what I would do is I would start with saying, all right, what direction is he facing? So the head, it's not tilted way to the left. It's not tilted this far. It's only more like just slightly a little bit to the left. In fact, even that's too much. About like that. Now, honestly, usually I start with the mass of the skull, but I feel like drawing this box is helping me really get a sense of the position of his head in space. But the nice thing is you can just draw that sphere on top of it. And you'll end up getting the same effect by just adding a sphere on top of that box. And basically then that top line, if I make this sphere, it actually should be a little bit higher. But if you make that sphere taking up the upper third, basically, let me switch to blue real quick. That top line right there becomes the brow line. Now, if you were to come in, wait, let me actually keep that blue for a second because that'll actually be handy. So like I mentioned before, you want to shave off part of that box. Shave off part of that box. And then halfway down the face, that's where you want to have that wedge that makes the nose start. Now, mind you, this simple set of diagrams, those three shapes, it takes a lot of practice to get to the point where you're kind of fluidly drawing them from a bunch of different angles. But you can take what I just did there and say, all right, I'm going to now draw them. Let's say here's that sphere. Now they're going to be looking to the right and upward. So now you would say, all right, let's put this box facing to the right. Shave off that bottom corner. And again, that wedge, that triangle, that three-dimensional triangle, that pyramid in the middle. Like just those three things, the box, in fact, it'll be easier if I do this in different colors. So you've got zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. Because normally I like to draw zoomed out. So you've got these three shapes. You've got the skull, you've got the jaw, and you've got the nose. And it's just a cube. Literally, the three primitives that you learn when you're like learning shape language. You get a circle, a square, and a triangle. So what you want to do is you want to practice combining these into a primitive head. And what I would do, James, is I would just have like a whole sheet of paper. Like I would fill a sheet of paper with different heads at different angles, and I would draw from some photo reference. Like I see you're practicing some over here on the side, and I'll tell you, we're doing this right now digitally online because it's the easiest way for us to practice. I would actually do this on paper. And the reason for that is because you're going to have more control with pencil and paper than you are digital. If you build up physical, traditional art skills, they translate to digital. But learning how to do something digital first, in my opinion, is harder. It's harder to learn how to get the lines to do what they want to do. It's hard enough to get them to do what they want to do in real life. But trying to get them to do what they want to do when you're working digitally, that is even harder. See here, Herman says, I've been on this Masters of the Universe kick. I love those characters. But you do a great job of them. They I think that, they've got such innovative character designs. I think that Masters of the Universe is one of the most innovative character designs, like the set of characters in general, most innovative set of, character designs that I've seen, in animation. They're like high up there. That's why they're so iconic. So the last thing I was going to mention to you, James, you should practice those things and you should practice them traditionally. But what I would do is I would get an entire sheet of paper and I would get some reference. So instead of drawing out of your head, you can just look up Andrew Loomis, or you can just go online and look up photo reference. There's an app called Muse, or we've used Quick Poses on this stream. My buddy John Ursick recommended that. I use Line of Action. They're all places where you can just find photos that are for you to draw from. And what I would do real quick, I'm zoomed in here on this Bridgman head. Let me go back to blue here. So when you're looking at these set of heads that are in these figures are inside of boxes. For instance, the one that's in the right-hand upper corner of my screen. Bring this brush down a little bit more. Now you can't see the nose from this angle, so that's kind of unfair. But my point is to get a whole sheet. And you can see how this is, even though you can't see the figure's nose, this is meant to be just the head from that pose. And then if you want to do one that has the nose in it, let's say I were to do this figure now, you would say, all right, head, jaw, and this is a very extreme angle, but, and then that wedge is going to come pretty much all the way out. In fact, I need to get in here and erase a little bit of that because it's going to break the nose. It's going to break the facial plane a little bit. But literally, to practice drawing heads, get a bunch of photo reference of heads from different angles. Fill an entire sheet with just drawing. Don't bother drawing eyeballs. Don't bother drawing lips. Don't bother drawing ears. Just use that sphere for the skull, box for the jaw, wedge for the nose, and just draw a sheet of heads with just those. And I think that will, like, if you do that once a day, and when I say this, I don't mean something where you're sitting down and you're spending like 3 hours studying. I mean, you open a sheet of paper, you grab a sheet of paper, and you try to get the whole thing done in like a half hour. Like it's literally, you're just drawing them. Like each one should take about a minute to draw. And so you can draw 30 of them in 1 minute, which you will easily draw more than 30 of them will take up more than one sheet of paper. You could say, I'm going to do 2 sheets of paper. Or let's say you only have 15 minutes. You could easily fill up just a normal 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. You can fill it up with 15 of these little diagrams in 15 minutes. So that is what I recommend in order to get better at drawing heads. So, James says I usually draw on paper anyway. Good. Yeah, and you know what? I'd be curious to see how it goes. And by the way, if there's ever a time where you want to show stuff during the live stream so that we can talk about, like, let's say you draw a bunch of heads, and you're like, what do you think about the heads? How'd I do? On here, you can go to File, and I don't know if it only allows me to do it because I own the board, but it may let you guys do it as well. But if you go to File, Edit, and it says Paste File, then it'll let you go through, find an image that you want to add to the board, and you can just paste that in, and then I can draw over it, and we can talk about that. So I'll tell you what. Why don't we do? You know what? I was gonna say I have some family stuff I have to take care of next weekend, so I don't know if I'm gonna do next weekend's live stream. Next weekend's live stream is going to be a maybe. I might have to cancel it and do the following week. But regardless, practice these, and then the next time that we do a Magma one, mention to me, like, hey, I wanted to add some stuff. We can go and talk about that. So let's see here. All right, let's wrap things up. And see here, the last couple of comments. Herman says, oh yeah, it's hard drawing digital. It took years for me to focus on steady lines. I'm still working on getting the types of lines I want out of drawing digitally as opposed to physically. Let's see here. And Herman says, all right, though this sketch I did, right, although this is sketch I did, if I want him, Ram Man, to be Jack Black, I would reference him to make a more realistic version of him. You know what, dude? That is the best casting I have ever heard. Jack Black as Ram Man. I would so watch that Masters of the. I don't even care who plays He-Man. Jack Black as Ram Man sounds awesome. I want to see that. And for some reason, I want to see Will Ferrell as I can't remember if his name was Staros or not, but the guy, the gray Birdman with the goggles, the guy, he's like gray with the red goggles and blue shorts, or it might be flipped. But I feel like Will Ferrell would do a great version of Stratos. That's his name, Stratos. I think Will Ferrell would make a great Stratos. Like all of a sudden, I don't want to see like an action. Like people who are true Master Universe fans would probably hate the movie that I would want to see because it wouldn't take it seriously at all. It would just be ridiculous. But I would love to see like almost the Anchorman version of Masters of the Universe. That would be so cool. All right. James says, thank you for your advice. You're more than welcome. I hope you're able to make some time to practice it. And like I said, this isn't meant to be like a long drudgery exercise. This is something you could do while you're watching TV. Just grab a sketchbook and have your reference next to you, and while you're watching TV, just practice drawing these simple forms, because it's the repetition that helps you get better at it. Because as you do it, you'll start seeing more and more places where you're like, well, I can make this cube looks a little bit wonky. You'll see places where it looks wonky. Like you may not be able to tell at first the difference between a good cube and a bad cube, but the more you do it, the cubes, the spheres, the wedges, you'll start saying, oh, wait, if I just shift this line over a little bit, if I make this a little bit thicker or thinner, if I keep these sets of lines parallel, it reinforces the three-dimensional illusion. And you'll learn that through repetition. So yes, please keep at it, and we'll talk more about that. I'm not going to shut this board down because I don't know what happens if I leave If I leave Magma, I'm not sure if you guys are able to stay here drawing. And if you guys want to export your sketches, I'll leave it open so you guys can do that. But I'm going to end up wrapping up the stream now. So again, if you guys want to export any of the sketches that are in here, go ahead or save the file now. Now's the time to do it. And while you guys are doing that, I am going to bring the screen back to me. And I'm going to tell you guys that if you enjoy these live streams, like to do additional bonus live streams twice a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. It's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, work in progress animated GIFs, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, sign up for my free monthly newsletter at substack.com/@GERIMI. And I should say that I don't know if it's going to continue to be monthly in the sense that I'm going to make a post on the newsletter about this. But the way that I am running my newsletter since I moved over to Substack is changing now because Substack kind of mirrors what Patreon does. And it has posts you can do publicly, posts you can do there's just for subscribers. And I'm realizing that as it does some of the same things as Patreon, I don't want to have to try and get all of the people that are on Patreon to shift over to Substack. So it may be something where instead you're getting multiple posts throughout the month as opposed to one big monthly post. But I'm going to address that at the next major newsletter that I send out. But substack.com/@Jeremy. And I lost my my mouse all of a sudden. That is so weird. There we go. Oh my god, that is so strange. I've normally the mouse does not it just goes over to my tablet like it's an extra screen, even though I'm screen sharing right now. Anyway, you won't care about how I learned learning how to use my computer. If you go to amazon.jeremy.net, they'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up my books there, like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It is a standalone psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can check out my most recent comic book project, Morning Star. It is a retelling of Lucifer's fall from heaven as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains the conclusion, issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character designs, thumbnails, page layout, script excerpts, and more. And if you go to the homepage of my YouTube channel, scroll down to book flip throughs, you can see what's inside before you pick them up. I never say it often enough, guys. Hit that like button. Hit that, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoy these and you know someone else who you think would enjoy them, hit the share button. Share it with others. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. That's it for now. Go be creative.